The bell rang at Riverside Academy, echoing down spotless hallways like the crack of a whip. Students shuffled out of classrooms, their chatter filled with after-school plans and assignment complaints. Among them was Maya, a quiet but bright 15-year-old girl with natural curiosity and the type of quiet strength that made her stand out without even trying. Her long curly hair, her favorite feature, framed her face with pride. It had taken her years to grow it out, and it was a piece of her identity passed down from her late mother. She walked alone, holding a sketchbook, heading toward the art room where she'd spend her free period. That was until she was called abruptly on the intercom. "Maya Torres, please report to the principal's office immediately." Her heart skipped. She hadn't done anything wrong. When she stepped into Principal Garrison's office, she noticed two things right away: the stern glare on the principal's face and a pair of electric clippers sitting on his desk. Principal Garrison was known for his rigid rules, obsession with control, and barely veiled prejudice. He'd gotten away with a lot over the years, protected by tenure and ignorance from higher-ups. "Take a seat," he barked. Maya sat, confused. "Did I do something wrong?" He leaned forward. "Yes. That hair of yours doesn't meet the standards of this institution. It's distracting, messy, and frankly unprofessional." Maya's mouth fell open. "My hair? But it's always been like this. That's the problem." Without further discussion, he grabbed the clippers. Before she could react, he flipped the switch. The buzzing sound filled the office. "I'm calling my dad," Maya whispered, terrified. "You can call whoever you want after this." And with one aggressive swipe, he cut through the first thick lock of her curls. Tears filled her eyes as she tried to twist away. "Stop. You can't do this." He didn't care. The secretary, Mrs. Patterson, stood in the doorway, frozen in shock, but she didn't intervene. By the time it was over, Maya sat trembling, hair in clumps on the floor, her head uneven and raw from the cruel treatment. Garrison tossed the clippers aside as if he had just disposed of trash. "Now," he said with satisfaction, "you may call your father." Hands shaking, Maya pulled out her phone. Meanwhile, across the city, Viktor Torres was finishing a call in a quiet cafe, dressed simply in jeans and a leather jacket, sunglasses resting on the table beside him. The call came through. "Maya." His daughter's voice trembled, and her words came in choked sobs. "Dad, he shaved my hair. The principal, he held me down. He said it wasn't professional. Please come." Viktor didn't ask for more details. He didn't shout or panic. He just stood up quietly, put his sunglasses on, and whispered, "I'm on my way." The sleek black SUV pulled up in front of Riverside Academy, like a shadow passing over the front steps. Students milling about the courtyard fell silent. Some recognized the man who stepped out. Even in a simple jacket and boots, Viktor Torres carried a weight that turned heads. The few who didn't recognize him could still feel the storm in his stride. He walked through the school doors with purpose. The front desk attendant looked up, startled, as Viktor didn't stop to check in. "Sir, you can't just—" "I'm here for my daughter," he said flatly, his voice like gravel soaked in fire. Before she could respond, he was already down the hall. Maya sat alone in an empty classroom now, her face puffy from crying, her head bowed. She hadn't wanted any other students to see her like this, but a few already had. One had even tried to offer her a hoodie to cover her scalp. When the door opened, she looked up. "Dad." Viktor didn't speak right away. He stepped forward, crouched beside her, and gently lifted her chin to see her face. His eyes scanned the jagged remnants of her hair. His jaw tightened. He placed his hand on hers, calming her trembling fingers. "Who did this?" She hesitated. "Principal Garrison." He stood slowly, as if holding back the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Stay here." Principal Garrison was in his office, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. He was reviewing a new school dress code memo when the door burst open. "Hey, you can't!" he shouted, but froze mid-sentence when he saw who it was. Viktor Torres walked in, closing the door behind him with an ominous click. "Mr. Torres," Garrison said, suddenly unsure of his tone. "I don't know what your daughter told you, but we were following school policy." Viktor didn't respond. "I understand emotions are high," Garrison continued, "but you're in a professional setting. Let's all stay calm." Viktor stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You took clippers to a child's head. You assaulted my daughter." Garrison straightened, trying to regain control. Her appearance was in violation of the handbook. "You don't touch a student, ever, especially not over their hair." She was being defiant. "I've trained special forces in 3 countries, Viktor interrupted, his voice hardening. "I've been in war zones quieter than this office, so don't think for 1 second I can't see a coward in front of me." Garrison swallowed. Viktor leaned in closer. "You violated her civil rights. You traumatized a young girl. And now you're going to face the consequences." Outside the office, staff members gathered. The energy had shifted. Rumors were already circulating. Some had heard Maya crying. Others had caught wind that her father was the Viktor Torres. Then suddenly, the school superintendent arrived. Someone had called ahead. With him were 2 district lawyers. Viktor stepped out of the principal's office and met the superintendent in the hall. "I'm pressing charges," he said. "And not just for Maya. I've read reviews. I've seen the complaints online. This man has a pattern." The superintendent, stunned but aware of the PR disaster unfolding, nodded. "Mr. Torres," he said, "you have my full attention. We'll be conducting an immediate investigation." "No," Viktor replied. "You'll be conducting an immediate removal. Investigation can come after." And just like that, Principal Garrison was escorted out of his own office. Students watched as the man who ruled the school with fear was walked out in shame, flanked by lawyers and stunned staff. But Viktor wasn't done. That evening, a video went viral. A former student posted a clip of Viktor walking Maya out of the school with his arm around her shoulders. Her head still uneven, but held high. The caption read, "She walked in alone. She left with a warrior. Justice for Maya." By the next morning, national media picked up the story. People from around the world posted messages of support for Maya, condemning the principal's actions. But the most powerful moment was yet to come. Viktor scheduled a press conference, not for publicity, but for awareness. It was the kind of press conference no one saw coming. At precisely noon, a podium had been set up outside Riverside Academy's front gates. A crowd had already gathered, local parents, reporters, students, and activists. Word had spread like wildfire across social media. Justice for Maya was trending in over 30 countries. Viktor Torres walked out, not in a suit, not in his signature movie attire, but in a simple black coat. Beside him stood Maya, with a fresh buzz cut and a quiet strength in her eyes that hadn't been there the day before. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "What happened here," Viktor said into the mic, "isn't just about my daughter. It's about every child who walks into a classroom and isn't protected. Every parent who trusts a school with their kid. Every staff member who turns a blind eye to abuse and calls it discipline." There were murmurs in the crowd, heads nodding, tears falling. "I've seen combat. I've been in countries where rights mean nothing. But I didn't expect to come home and find my daughter treated like this by a principal who thought a haircut would teach her respect. What he taught instead was trauma." He paused, scanning the crowd. "And if you think I'm going to let that slide because we're told that's just how the system works, you don't know me." Inside the school, the remaining staff watched the speech on live stream. Some looked shaken, others ashamed. One janitor whispered, "He's right. We all knew Garrison was a tyrant." In a back office, the school board chair slammed her laptop shut. "Call an emergency meeting. Now." Meanwhile, Garrison's house was surrounded by news vans. The man who once thought he ruled over a student body now couldn't step outside without cameras asking, "Do you feel remorse? Why did you target Maya Torres?" But that same evening, Maya's story hit every major network. She appeared on talk shows, invited alongside her father. But Viktor made sure she did the talking. "It's not just about me," she said. "Kids get bullied by grown-ups with power. They hide behind rules. I just wanted it to stop, for everyone." A producer backstage said, "She's got more courage than most adults I've seen." Viktor smiled softly. "She's always had it. Now the world's seeing it too." Then came the lawsuit. Civil rights lawyers filed a case not just against Garrison, but against the school district itself. It wasn't about money. Viktor made that clear. All settlement offers were refused. "We're not settling," he told his legal team. "We're setting a precedent." Maya's hair was already growing back, but her bravery had ignited something far greater. Parents around the country began sharing similar stories. Former students of Riverside spoke up online, some recalling racist remarks, others sharing how their individuality had been stripped in the name of order. One post read, "He shaved my brother's head in 2019. We were too scared to tell anyone. Thank you, Maya." And then came the biggest shock of all. A federal education committee called Viktor and Maya to testify. What began as a local school dispute was now a nationwide call to action on discriminatory discipline in schools. Sitting in front of the panel, Viktor told lawmakers, "You don't teach children to conform by humiliating them. You teach them with empathy, structure, and respect." You break their spirits, you fail as an educator. Maya looked them in the eye and said, "You're supposed to protect us." That's all I wanted. The testimony aired live. It was replayed millions of times across schools and homes. Maya's voice became a rallying cry. And while all this unfolded, Garrison disappeared from public life, resigned from any boards, his educator's license suspended pending investigation. He was finished. But Viktor wasn't done. With support from education leaders and donations from around the world, he and Maya launched the Maya Torres Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to defending students from abuse, promoting inclusive school policies, and offering legal help to kids silenced in school systems. The motto, respect before rules. The air was thick with anticipation on Maya's first day back at Riverside Academy. Only this time, it wasn't the same place she had once walked into feeling like an outsider. Something fundamental had shifted. Students lined the corridors, clapping softly as she passed by. Teachers, previously silent, now offered nods of respect. One young freshman held up a homemade sign, "You gave us all a voice, Maya." But Maya wasn't back for revenge. She was back to reclaim her space. The walls that had once boxed her in were now hers to redefine. Her locker, once smeared with notes mocking her hair and background, had been repainted, this time by the student body itself. On it were messages of strength, respect, and unity. Yet behind the symbolic changes, there was still unfinished business. That business arrived in a suit and quiet authority: Harrison Ford. Yes, Harrison Ford, longtime friend of Viktor Torres, who had flown in quietly and unannounced. A man of few words and steady purpose, Ford had seen enough injustice in his lifetime to know when it was time to step in. He hadn't come with fanfare or cameras. He came with intention. He stood in the principal's former office, now occupied by a freshly appointed interim head, and requested a full review of the school's discipline history. Why? Because Viktor had uncovered something. Maya wasn't the only one targeted. The review revealed years of disproportionate punishments, disproportionately affecting black and minority students. Hair violations, dress code infractions, excessive detentions. Viktor knew it. Ford confirmed it. And now they had proof. Sometimes, Ford said at a surprise town hall, it takes a louder voice to be heard, but it only works if that voice speaks for the voiceless. The crowd was silent. Then applause. Maya took the mic. We're not broken. We were silenced, but we're loud now, and we're not leaving. Then came the policy changes. With the pressure of national attention, the school board implemented a historic new code, one that explicitly banned race-based grooming policies, prohibited humiliation as punishment, and formed a student-led oversight committee. Maya was unanimously elected as the committee's first chair. She stood with Ford and Viktor as they unveiled a new plaque at the front of the school. To those who stood tall when they were told to bow. To those who spoke when they were told to stay silent. Respect before rules. The words shimmered in brass under the California sun. But the story didn't end there. 2 months later, Maya was invited to speak at the United Nations Youth Assembly in New York. Standing on a global stage, she delivered a message about identity, dignity, and justice. Her speech ended with, "They shaved my head, but they didn't take my power. They thought silence was control, but my voice became louder. We don't need to change who we are. The world needs to change how it sees us." The entire hall rose in a standing ovation. Back home, Viktor watched the broadcast in a quiet living room. Ford, sitting beside him, sipped from a mug and said, "That's one hell of a young lady." Viktor smiled. "She's got your calm and my fire." They both chuckled. Then Ford leaned forward, his face hardening with quiet resolve. "You know, Viktor, some battles we fight with fists, but the real ones, they're fought with truth." Viktor nodded. And she just won one of the biggest. In the months that followed, the Maya Torres Foundation opened satellite offices in 4 states. Parents began speaking up. Students felt empowered. And the foundation's hotline received thousands of messages, many from young people saying, "Because of Maya, I found my voice." And as for Maya, she grew her hair out again, not because she needed to prove anything, but because it was hers. Every strand a symbol of survival, courage, and triumph. And when she walked down the school hallway, head high and proud, no one dared look down on her again. Not because her dad was Viktor Torres, but because she had become a legend in her own right.